And in general, if you look at the condition of our population, look at what their family conditions are like. The family conditions of the American people are worse than ever before, since the last Depression. Even worse than Depression conditions of the 1930s. That already exists. People may not notice it, but it exists because the people who are dying, and the people who are being pushed to die are being pushed to die. So it depends upon the emergence of a group in the population, a small group, but an effective one, which turns the tide on this thing and gets rid of Obama and hopefully finds a Democrat who is not Obama to take the place. But right now we're on the edge of the threatened extermination of the human species. Something like that is what's in place, because thermonuclear war, the thing that now Obama is pushing, that's Obama's program, is thermonuclear war. The human species cannot survive thermonuclear war. It can't be done. That's why sane people are resisting it, absolutely. But others are still pushing. And the people who are pushing Obama, they're committing suicide, mass suicide, because of their stupidity. And we've stupefied our people. Look, we don't give them the kind of work anymore. Well, Wall Street. Wall Street is a waste of time. You can take the whole bunch and throw them in the ocean, except you might pollute the ocean. There's nothing you can do with that. There's nothing there. Their mentality is wrong. You have a few of them come out and say, oh, this is dumb. We're not going to do this. That's just stupid. We're going to have Glass-Steagall. So you have smart people who are all for Glass-Steagall. Dumb people are against Glass-Steagall. That's the way it is. And therefore, the factor of a section of the population, which is actually an intellectual leadership, which gives a spark of optimism to the population generally. And then people, you give them good jobs, give them better opportunity, yeah, they'll respond. But if you give them this constant depression, worse and worse and worse, as over the past dozen years, worse and worse and worse, and you don't have a population that has the moral qualifications of survival. And that can only be supplied by a minority of people who are capable of leadership and who provide the leadership. People, as was demonstrated with this landing on Mars, the people will respond to leadership of that type. But without that leadership, they will not respond. And they're gone to hell as good as now.
Right.
And that's the problem. So our job is, we don't complain, get out there and inspire the people, inspire enough people to try to reverse this process. Don't blame other people, blame yourself. Not in the sense of saying you're to blame, but you would be to blame if you didn't do enough to reverse this process. That's where we are. That's real. That is real. Any other thinking is stupidity. The belief in democracy as such is wrong. Democracy occurs only when you have a leadership which inspires that in people. When it inspires the hope and possibility of achieving something. It does not lie in the individual per se. Some individuals, yes, but it's still a minority of society, a small minority of society. And you have people who are actually evil, who work for the other cause. And so you have to outnumber them, sort of. But that's what we are. We're in the most dangerous period for humanity that has ever been known to exist. We're on the cusp of thermonuclear warfare. And exactly what is planned, the exact scheme which is required of any party that's going into thermonuclear war is sufficient to virtually exterminate the human species. And we're on the verge of its happening.
So as we've discussed, you have the first strike, but then you have the conditions created by the first strike would render the planet unlivable for years into the future, which I think we're going to be covering in this upcoming video features, that you have, this is extermination warfare. You have the carryover effects that make it impossible for human life to continue in any type of civilized way for long periods into the future.
Well, you see that, we see people shaken when you bring up these questions. And they begin to say, no, that's not going to happen. That's foolishness. They'll never let that happen. You're wrong. They'll never let that happen. But that's exactly what will happen. But that's the factor of cowardice. And you can see it in the population. You can see it among individuals in the population. Suddenly you think somebody who's very confident, capable, and so forth, and then suddenly they get this question is put in their face. Oh, no, that would never happen. That's ridiculous. It would never happen.
The point is it's happening.
That's right.
It's happening right now.
Exactly.
Obama's entire administration has been it happening.
Exactly. So therefore you have the Joint Chiefs of Staff, for example. You have the Russian military leadership, for example, Putin, for example. And they are doing the only thing that can be done to try to prevent this war. Without them, nothing. And it's what we run into with dealing with the American population. How many people out there, they'll respond to a certain level. It shows they're not dead. It shows they still have morality, but they don't have the guts to face the oligarchy. They capitulate. And we've seen it. There has been no sign of serious resistance to Obama so far. Don't worry about the Republicans. That's in this setting, that is unimportant. It's insignificant. If the Democratic Party is led by Obama, you're dead. That's the truth of the matter. And that's what we have to campaign on, is to understand, yes, is inspiring people in the population who have leadership capabilities to be leaders at this time. That's the issue. That's the only chance there is. It's happened before in history, things like that. And it's required now. Otherwise, forget it, it's gone. Gone. Talking machines on Mars may wonder what happened to us. Hey, what happened? What happened? Anyway, but that's where we stand. That's reality. It's been coming all along, ever since Kennedy was killed. And the cover-up of the Kennedy assassination, ever since that time, been on this way down. And you saw what happened. But this is reality. And therefore, those of us who know what the situation is must act, and must act with solidity. Don't leave it up to somebody else. Get the people together who do recognize this and tell them it's time for them to do their duty to save civilization. But the only thing that hits the British against this happening is their fear. Their fear. If they're scared enough, it won't happen. But if you're not scaring the pants off them, and you really don't want to see that. That's the situation. And people who are confident that it'll never happen are just the damn fools out there who don't know any better. And that's the way you have to think about it. Don't give them any credit. If they're acting like damn fools, they're acting like damn fools. And don't hesitate to tell them.
Right. Well, that's the first step of the leadership you're talking about.
Exactly.
First step is leadership. You're saying, cut that shit out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the first step.
Well, exactly.
You know, it's the democracy in a society of idiots is path towards extinction.
Yeah. No, that's it. Exactly it. It's cowardice. And it's opportunism, a mixture of the two.
Right.
They give themselves an opportunist dream, and that becomes the consolation. Oh, don't worry about it. I'm all taken care of. I'm all fixed. You know?
Looking for opportunities on a train that's going to hell.
Yeah, exactly.
But the other passengers believe it's going somewhere better, so.
Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. So it's quite relevant. And it's coming on fast. Well, we can do better. But we have to recognize we don't. When we play into the idea that we have to be democratic, we have to rely on democratic forces. That's crap. It's the inspiration by people who are capable of providing inspiration, which is always a tiny minority of the population. That's the only thing, the only hope you have in a situation like this. Popular opinion is not what you want. Popular opinion assures your death of humanity.
And that's where people have such a hard time, because it's very hard to for people now to find a basis for their thoughts outside of popularity.
But you saw the thing with what happened with curiosity. The inspiration that came in a part of the population with curiosity. That is the only kind of thing that can turn a situation like this around.
Yeah, you can see why the optimism engendered by the moon landing was attacked by think tanks that recognized that the optimism that caused had a huge political implication.
Exactly. That's why the space program was killed. Because it implies the core of the only thing that will inspire the people of these planets to get out of this mess, especially the people of the United States.
If you take away these beautiful things, it's harder to fight for something.
Exactly. The human species depends on inspiration, and it has to be real. Otherwise, it doesn't work. That's what we are. It can't be done. That's why sane people are resisting it, absolutely. But others are still pushing. And the people who are pushing Obama, they're committing suicide, mass suicide, because of their stupidity. And we've stupefied our people. Look at, we don't give them the kind of work anymore. Wall Street. Wall Street is a waste of time. You can take the whole bunch and throw them in the ocean. Except you might pollute the ocean. There's nothing you can do with that. There's nothing there. Their mentality is wrong. You have a few of them come out and say, oh, this is dumb. We're not going to do this. That's a stupid place. But right now we're on the edge of the threatened extermination of the human species. Something like that is what's in place. Because thermonuclear war, the thing that now Obama is pushing, that's Obama's program, is thermonuclear war. The human species cannot survive thermonuclear war. And in general, if you look at the condition of our population, look at what their family conditions are like. The family conditions of the American people are worse than ever before, since the last Depression. Even worse than Depression conditions of the 1930s. That already exists. People may not notice it, but it exists, because the people who are dying, and the people who are being pushed to die are being pushed to die. So it depends upon the emergence of a group in the population, a small group, but an effective one, which turns the tide on this thing and gets rid of Obama and hopefully finds a Democrat who is not Obama to take the